Under Major Gilbert, Bougainvillea, who she was utterly devoted to, however, Violet is injured after a mission that results in the loss of her arms, requiring them to be replaced with prosthetics. Colonel Hodgins, an old acquaintance of Gilbert, arrives to pick up Violet. He explains to Violet that the war they were fighting has ended and peace has come, though he is unwilling to tell Violet what happened to Gilbert. They leave for the capital city of Leiden, where Gilbert has already arranged for Violet to be adopted by the Evergarden family. However, Violet cannot adjust to civilian life due to her military indoctrination. Hodgins then decides to show Violet his business, the CH Postal Company, which acts as a private mail and ghostwriting service, and hires her as a postal worker. She then witnesses the auto-memory dolls of the ghostwriting department writing a letter for an illiterate man who wants to proclaim his love to someone. Violet then remembers that "I love you" were the last words Gilbert told her. Wanting to know the meaning of the words, Violet asks Hodgins for her to join the ghostwriting department. Impressed that Violet has finally shown signs of acting on her own free will instead of on someone else's orders, Hodgins accepts Violet's request despite her not being an auto-memory doll. Violet joins the ghostwriting department and meets its members, the veteran Katlia and the two rookies, Erica and Iris. Under Katlia's direction, Violet begins her training as an auto-memory doll, quickly learning how to use a typewriter. However, despite her technical proficiency, Violet is still incapable of understanding emotions. This comes to a head when she offers to write a romantic letter that ends up angering both the recipient and the client. Erica then confronts Violet about her motivations for becoming a doll but relents when Violet tells her about her desire to learn the meaning of the words "I love you." Iris suggests to Hodgins that she fire Violet, but Erica comes to her defense, partly motivated by her own insecurities about being a proper doll. Hodgins decides not to fire Violet and gives her a new uniform, along with the brooch Gilbert had originally given to Violet, which Hodgins managed to recover. Violet is overjoyed at the return of the brooch and agrees to attend a doll training course that night. Hodgins confides in Katlia that he used to be friends with Gilbert and that Gilbert is never coming back. Violet attends the auto-memory doll training school in order to become a true doll. There she meets and befriends a girl named Luculia Marlborough. The next day, Violet and Luculia are assigned to practice their actual ghostwriting skills on each other. However, Instructor Rodanth is unimpressed with the way Violet ghostwrote Luculia's letter, informing her that letters are an instrument for communicating a person's feelings and that the letter she ghostwrote was unacceptable. Luculia decides to take Violet to her favorite spot atop a bell tower to show her the view, and it's revealed that Luculia's brother is crippled from the war and is now a drunkard. However, Violet fails to pass the class, while Luculia graduates with top marks. Luculia meets Violet again and offers to ghostwrite a letter to Gilbert, but Violet cannot find the words to say. Luculia then tells Violet about how her parents died in the war and her brother feels guilty for failing to protect them. She wants to tell her brother that she's just glad he's alive and home, but likewise, she cannot find the words to say. Touched by Luculia's words, Violet manages to write a short and concise letter that effectively conveys Luculia's feelings to her beloved elder brother. Upon being shown the letter, Instructor Rodanth allows Violet to graduate, and Luculia helps her elder brother to the top of the bell tower to enjoy the view like they used to as children. Iris receives a personal ghostwriting request from her hometown, but accidentally injures her hand as a result. Violet is sent along with her to assist with her writing. Upon arriving, Iris is met by her parents, and her mother reveals that she was the one who had sent the request in order to get Iris to come back to celebrate her birthday. However, Iris is frustrated when her mother admits she wants to use the party as a way to find a suitor for her. As Violet writes the party invitations, Iris specifically asks her not to send an invitation to a man named Emmon Snow, but Violet sends the invitation anyway. When Emmon appears at the party, Iris angrily retreats to her room. Violet then talks to Iris to figure out what's wrong, and Iris tells her that Emin was her childhood crush, but he rejected her confession. The emotional pain caused by Emin's rejection was what caused her to leave her hometown to become a doll. This causes Violet to realize that a love confession like Gilbert's must have required a great deal of courage. Violet then helps Iris write apology letters to all of her party guests, as well as her parents. Moved by the letter, Iris's parents allow her to continue working as a doll. On the way back to Leiden, Iris tells Violet that her parents named her after the flower of the same name since she was born while they were in full bloom. This triggers a flashback in Violet, who remembers that Gilbert named her after the flower of the same name at the request of the military. Violet is sent to the kingdom of Drossel in order to write a public love letter to its teenage princess, Charlotte, to Damien, the prince of the neighboring kingdom Flugel. Violet's mission is crucial since Drossel and Flugel were previously enemies in the war and are arranging the marriage to cement the terms of the peace treaty. Despite Princess Charlotte's anxiety about the wedding, Violet writes the love letter, and Prince Damien writes back a letter in response. But Princess Charlotte doesn't appear satisfied with it. Princess Charlotte later confides in Violet that she met and grew infatuated with Prince Damien when she first met him, since he treated her as a person and not as a potential wife or a mere queen consort. However, she is unsure whether Prince Damien reciprocates her feelings or not, since she could tell the letter he returned contained no emotion in it. Violet then gets an idea and arranges with Damien's stall to have Princess Charlotte and Prince Damien both write their own letters to each other. This starts a heated but passionate correspondence between the two that entrances everybody in both kingdoms. The wedding goes as planned, while Violet and Katlia, who was Prince Damien's doll, return to Leiden. Though Katlia notices Violet smiling upon returning, Violet encounters Gilbert's brother, Dietfried, who expresses disbelief in how she became a doll and reminds her that she had killed countless people, including many of his men. Violet, along with a number of other dolls, arrives at the Shahar Observatory to help the scholars make copies of a number of books. Violet is paired with a young scholar named Leon, who initially dislikes her and dolls in general. However, he is impressed with how quickly she works and begins to soften when he sees that she doesn't care about his background or upbringing as an orphan. He invites Violet to view Ali's comet with him, which only appears once every 200 years, and she accepts. While the two stargaze, Leon explains that his father was also a scholar at the observatory but had disappeared on an expedition. His mother then left home to search for him and never returned either, causing Leon to resent them and the concept of love. Violet then tells Leon that she has no known blood relatives but is completely devoted to Gilbert. It is then that Leon realizes that Violet is in love with Gilbert. The next morning, Violet prepares to leave now that her job is complete. Leon sees her off and tells her that instead of waiting at the observatory for his parents to return, he'll start traveling the world like Violet to go look for them. As Violet leaves, Leon wonders if he'll ever encounter her again. Violet goes to assist a famous writer, Oscar Webster, in writing his next play. However, she arrives to find him a drunk recluse. Violet manages to convince Oscar to suspend his drinking while they work, and they begin writing the play. The play is about a girl named Olive who uses her power to summon magical sprites to defeat a beast, but in doing so, sacrifices her ability and becomes stranded away from her home and her father. Violet becomes curious about how the story will end, which Oscar hasn't decided upon yet. Violet then finds a parasol, triggering an angry outburst from Oscar. He then admits to Violet that he based Olive off of his daughter, Olivia, who had died from illness, and he was trying to write the play as a way to cope with his grief over her loss. Violet then inspires Oscar with the idea of Olive using her magical parasol to fly home. As Oscar comes to terms with his daughter's death, he thanks Violet. On the way home, Violet begins to suffer regrets over the people she killed during the war, wondering how many happy endings she may have prevented. Upon returning to Leiden, Violet learns from Mrs. Evergarden that Gilbert is dead and confronts Hodgins. He admits that after their final mission, neither Gilbert nor his body could be found, but his dog tags were recovered, leading to the army's presumption that he was dead. Violet remains in denial about Gilbert's being dead and flees to the post office in distress. Violet heads over to the military headquarters to confront Dietfried about the truth of Gilbert's fate, and he confirms that he is dead. Still in denial, Violet travels to Gilbert's mansion where she finds his grave.